Here's the thing. I don't usually go on camera and say a movie is garbage, but I have to make an exception here. This movie is garbage. I've been excited to see Mel Gibson rise back to his former glory as a Hollywood powerhouse and a force to be reckoned with. Well, I've basically changed my mind on that because I think this movie was purely money laundering. That's what it was. Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg wanted to just launder some money. That's what they did. Because I just don't see how this was greenlit. Flight Risk is an action thriller film directed by Mel Gibson, starring Mark Wahlberg, Michelle Dockery, and Topher Grace. A U.S. Marshal arrests an accountant who was hiding out in a remote part of Alaska after turning informant against his former employer, a mafia family. They charter a small private airplane to take the accountant to Anchorage so they can transfer him to New York City, where they intend for the accountant to testify against the mafia family. In comes a shady, bald Mark Wahlberg who fakes his way into being their pilot to make sure they don't make it to their destination alive. Look, straight off the bat, this is one of those movies that should have gone straight to streaming. Absolutely. Should have just gone straight to streaming. It's kind of like a movie you see the trailer and you go, oh, I want to watch that. And then, you know what? I'm just going to put it in my watch list. And then later you watch it and then you realize you had just wasted your time. I had high hopes for this movie. I really did. I didn't want it to suck as much as it did, but it did. One thing this movie does have going for it, though, is that Michelle Dockery absolutely carried the entire thing on her back. Without her, this movie is garbage. Well, actually, it's garbage, but it would be even more garbage without her. You know what? When people ask her about movies that she's enjoyed doing, she would probably skip through this one. She tried her best. And you can tell she's a classically trained actor. She had to slog through this garbage.
If that's true, then I'm glad.
While she's out there carrying this whole movie on her back, Mark Wahlberg does everything in his power to make sure this movie is a B movie.
Y'all need a pilot?
Actually, more like a Z movie. He was playing basically a caricature of someone who was a bad guy. He wasn't lost in the role. It was just, he kept saying things like, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy this.
I'm going to enjoy this.
It's like he went on YouTube and said, show me what it's like to be a bad guy. And then just go, okay, so bad guys repeat words and he was a cartoon villain and a crappy one at that. And here is another problem with this film. There is that one rule about filmmaking is show, don't tell. This movie does a fair amount of telling and no showing whatsoever. They don't cut to a different scene or show what previously happened. There are no backstories. It's just talk, all in that one plane. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, the whole thing was shot in one plane. There is nowhere else. There's no other scenes to add to it. You know that thing where all the characters sort of tell you their own backstory, but then there's no cutaways to it. It's just, they just go, this happened and that, and we just sit there. We paid actual money to watch this film and we sat there and listened to them tell us their backstory and nothing to show for it. That's what Mel Gibson did to us. Took our money. This is probably why his house burnt down. Now, that's a bad joke because a lot of people actually suffered in that fire.
Oh. Can somebody see if Mark's okay?
But I think it's Mel Gibson's fault. Oh, and I forgot to also mention, to top it all off, there's this guy on the phone helping the protagonist fly the plane as she's not an actual pilot. This guy is doing a fair amount of flirting and he had the cringiest way of doing it. It's like one of those call center type of guy. Look, I'm not saying Indian accents are not sexy. I'm also not saying that it is. That's all I'm saying about that. It's just, no. I think the technique was that the call center person is a relaxed character trying to talk her through it and keep her calm at the same time by flirting back and forth, but somehow also making it serious at the same time. It just, No. And then we move over to Topher Grace. Now, Topher Grace is from That 70s Show, and he plays a character called Eric. He practically played that same character in this film. It was just Eric, but older and in the back of a plane somewhere, just doing Eric things. Like, there is no difference. If you watch That 70s Show and then watch this movie, you would not notice the difference in the character. It's just, there is no range there. I mean, Mark Wahlberg has no range, but Topher Grace lacks range even more. Ah, Michelle Dockery, you worked with so much less. I'm sorry. You deserve so much better. This movie had a bunch of rangeless men. I hope they paid Michelle Dockery a huge sum of money because she would need it. I reckon Michelle Dockery did this movie to pay off her mortgage. It's one of those money jobs. That's what it looks like. There is just no reason why she would say yes to this. The whole fucking movie just made me reconsider Dry January. I wish I was drunk whilst watching it. I wasn't, but wow, I could have done it. I've never rooted so hard for a plane to crash and kill everybody. That's how bad this thing was. It's a stinkeroonie. I'm gonna go ahead and rate this movie a cringy 1 out of 10 because it's gross. And that's my 2 cents. I hope to see you guys in the next video where I speak Japanese to a chipmunk. And then the chipmunk is like, why are you speaking Japanese to me? And I'm going, why are you able to understand me and you speak in English? Whoa, what's going on here?